Is Morgan Gibbs White a cheat for going down the way he did against Rodri as Forest lost 2-0 to Man City? Let's get into it. Welcome to your match analysis. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Whatever time of day you're watching this, hope you're well. And welcome to your match analysis and key talking points on Nottingham Forest. As we lost 2-0 to Manchester City, but there's been a lot of stuff circling this match, and in particular the whole Morgan Gibbs White Rodri scene, and we're going to get into all of that in a second. I'm really interested to hear your guys' views versus the way some media outlets are portraying this. If you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new, and tonight Beat the Drop is back at 8 p.m. Don't you miss it. We got the full gang on here. And there are rumors there may be some additions. But firstly, and joking aside, let me take a massive moment just to thank you guys, because you guys are unreal. I can't believe you guys got Beat the Drop nominated for Best Premier League Podcast. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to ask for another favor. It is now down to a short list of 10. And this is it. We're in the finals. And we're going to try and bring that the award home for you guys. If we don't win, so what? Look how far we have come. But if you could take a second to vote for the podcast, the link's pinned in the comments down below. Really would appreciate it if you go into the link, click on the Premier League Best Podcast section and choose Forest Fan TV from the drop down. Thank you guys so much. Honestly, it's completely overwhelming, the support you guys give us. And finally, don't forget to grab your Ryan Yates signed shirt. The link for that as well is in the description. Okay, let's get on with this, guys. Okay, so there's been this huge narrative push today about Morgan Gibbs White and about what's happened between him and Rodri in the Man City game. I'm sure you've all seen it. We'll put some clips up for you about it. But everyone is in agreement it's definitely a red card and that Rodri shouldn't have put his arms around Morgan Gibbs White's neck. To be honest, the whole thing was stupid anyway. It's not like it was a massive, reckless challenge or anything like that. Don't know what happened to Rodri. Who cares? He went off. But a lot of people today are pushing the narrative that why did Morgan Gibbs White, I'm talking outside the Forest fan base here, of course, why did Morgan Gibbs White go down so easily and make it look like he was sniped from the stands? And was he cheating? Look, in my opinion, I'll give you mine, but I'm more interested in yours in the comments down below. I wish he'd went down even more dramatically. This is football. If you don't go down for a challenge, it's like, I'll give you the best example. If you go through in the penalty box and someone swipes you and does foul you, but you stay on your feet, how many times have you ever seen that given as a penalty? Pretty much never. So a footballer has to go down for an incident to be kind of registered, if you like. And imagine Morgan Gibbs White didn't go down, because let's be honest, he's a well-chiseled guy, has a good physique. I mean, he wouldn't feel that on his neck. But if he stayed up, would Rodri have actually been sent off? And I think that should be the question that the media and those other outlets are asking, rather than about how he reacted, especially when you see divers left, right and center in penalty boxes and everything else. And on top of that, you see people who get, a little elbow in the stomach and they're holding their face. I remember Rivaldo back in the day doing that. When the ball was nowhere near his face, hands on, go on his face, and down he goes. Can't remember who it was against, maybe Turkey or something. But the point is here, does a player have to go down? Or should the narrative be that the player goes down for a referee to make the correct call? So before they start coming at the players, maybe the standards of the refereeing needs to change. And if that was to have been given, say, as a red card without Morgan Gibbs White feeling the need to go down, then I think that he would have stayed on his feet. So let's get the refereeing right first. You know, a foul is a foul, whether or not a player goes down. A violent conduct offense is a violent conduct offense, whether or not a player goes down. So before you come at my boy Morgan Gibbs-White, talk about the referees first and talk about the standards that they are showing. So for me, the answer to this is quite simply, damn straight he should have gone down. And he should have stayed down as well, because it was not acceptable what Rodri did. And I think Foden gets away with it as well, because Foden as well put his hands on Morgan Gibbs-White, and that went unnoticed as well. So what was VAR doing? Man City could have been down to 9 men. But get your thoughts in on this one. I think it's quite an interesting topic. And do you think Morgan Gibbs-White should have gone down? Or do you think he should have gone down but without the dramaticness of it, if you like? Is that even a word? Don't know. Get your thoughts in down below. Okay, let's move on and talk about some of the player performances. And we did cover this in a bit of detail yesterday on Grumpy Old Reds. If you haven't seen that episode, make sure you check it out after this video. But I want to talk about Dominguez, and I wanted to kind of talk about, is he a star or is it too early to call on this one? Because as I said on yesterday's podcast, I gave him a 9 for a star on the player ratings. I thought that second half performance was out of this world in comparison, obviously, relatively speaking, to what we've seen from Forest players over the past 12 months in the Premier League. And after Tavares, he was the second one that I was a bit like, is this guy going to be the one or not? I didn't have doubts about him, but I was thinking more, where would he fit in the team? To me, he looked like a holding 8. And did we need a box-to-box 8 like we do have Danilo? I think Danilo's been forgotten about since he's been injured. So for me, Dominguez jumped himself really high up my pecking order yesterday. But what I do want to say about him that I didn't say yesterday was, let's just bring him down a bit, because I don't want to overhype a player up to the, stratosphere and then get disappointed after a couple of games. And I think I've done that with Sangare, and I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I was over the moon excited about Sangare, a player I've always rated. And we talked about it yesterday. He's come into Forest, and it's not so much that he's playing bad. It's just more so for me, he looks like he can't be asked. And that does worry me. But again, where I've just put Dominguez right up here and said, bring him down, I got Sangare here, and I'm going to bring him up and say, can't speak the language, doesn't know many of the players, got to adapt to the Premier League coming, from the Farmers League in the Eredivisie. So there's going to be a bit of a curve. But I still do have high expectations that he will hit the ground running. Now it got me thinking even further. What would the best midfield 3 be now? A lot of people would say get Yates in there. A lot now saying Dominguez. A lot talking about Mangala. Danilo, as I mentioned. Where's he going to sit? As things stands, I think our strongest midfield 3 would be something along the lines of Sangare when he's up to speed, Dominguez, and probably Danilo. I think that would be a really exciting 3. And then bring Yates on in the second half if we need a bit of shithousery. Santos on maybe if you need to really lock down that midfield. We've got a really core, strong midfield. And it's all about how Cooper uses them, utilizes them, and what tactics he deploys with them. But for me, I've always said this. The game is won and lost in the midfield battle. If you control the midfield, you control the game. Now, the barometer of Man City isn't really one we should be looking at. And this is why we're not doing a massive in-depth video like we normally do, because the game was really 2 halves. City dominated the first half, Forest dominated the second. It turned on a red card. That's pretty much all you can really take from that game. The more interesting games are going to be the Brentford one coming up, the Palace one, and the Luton one after the international break. But I like these signs that we are seeing in the likes of Dominguez, in the likes as well of some of the fullbacks, and that's what I want to move on to now. Having said everything I've just said about tempering expectations, reducing overhypeness, and bringing up players that maybe haven't started well, I'm going to contradict myself here, because I'm not convinced about him, guys. Tavares, he was the number one non-convinced player I had in this summer transfer window. I didn't understand the logic of it, would be the first point. At the time we bought him, we still had Omar Richards on the books, still got Nico Williams, we just brought in Einar, we bought Montiel shortly after or before, I can't remember. We had Biancone, you got Serge Aurier. Literally, you could field a team of fullbacks by the amount that we had in the squad. And this one just felt overkill for me. So even before I've judged him as a player or looked at his qualities, it was more so the logic behind it. Now, that logic started to become a bit clearer when we saw the likes of the players that got shipped out over to the Greeks. You saw Omar Richard grow a second leg back and get shipped out to Olympiacos. Saw Biancone going as well. I would have expected maybe one or two. So what does that tell you? It tells you that Cooper didn't really like Omar. He didn't really like Biancone. And he wanted someone like a Tavares. I think this one is 100% a Cooper signing. But I'm yet to understand the logic behind it because he's not a defender. And I'm not just basing that on yesterday's game. I'm basing that on what I've seen from him, when he was out in France, while he was at Arsenal, etc. So I'm still very skeptical about him. Have I written him off? No. Do I think he will work when we play like a Luton and you want those wing backs flying forward and overlapping and creating chances? Yeah, I do think he will work for that. But I will still argue Einar is the better left back by a country mile. And now that Montiel, who looks like he's settled down, and I thought was brilliant in the second half against Man City, either him or Serge Aurier on that right-hand side, with Einar as the number one choice at left back, that to me seems more balanced. And in fact, I'd put Nico Williams as second in command for that left back position ahead of Tavares. So look, don't get me wrong, I'm not writing him off yet, but I am still just as skeptical about him as I was pre-season. But Montiel, another player who I thought, well, hold on, same scenario. How many right backs do we need? And after the Burnley game, I did say to you guys, and so did the others on the channel, let's just calm down. He had a bad night, yes, granted, but he's not a bad player. And he, for me, was fantastic against Man City. So in a roundabout way, I'm contradicting and re-contradicting myself over and over again. Let's not overjudge them just quite yet, especially as the starting 11 isn't quite settled down yet. But this one for me, Tavares, is the one I'm most worried about. Out of the summer signings, who's the one that's got you kind of a little worried? I don't know if that's the right phrase to use. I'm trying to make it as politically correct as I want. If you don't want the politically correct one, then the question would be, who do you think's been the crappiest signing of the summer so far? Let me know your thoughts down below. Okay, so these were some of the key talking points from the game at the weekend. And as it's Man City, it's Man City. Just kind of take it 2-0, not too bad. Didn't destroy our goal difference. No one's usually going to win at the Etihad anyway. So we move on and we move forward. But I'd be really keen to hear your guys' thoughts on all of the things we've discussed. What did you think about the narrative they're pushing on Morgan Gibbs-White? How good do you think Dominguez can be? Are you worried about Sangare at all? And have you written off any of the signings we've had this summer so far? But overall, things are looking positive. Yes, we've dropped down into the bottom half, but we are way ahead of the people we'll be talking to tonight on Beat the Drop at 8 p.m. So make sure you tune in there. Thank you so much for watching. Please do hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV. And if you would be so kind as to give us your vote for Best Premier League Podcast for the final, as we are now officially nominated. We really do love and appreciate your support. You Reds.